It's 10:47 p.m. on a Sunday. You're sitting at your kitchen table with 3 browser tabs open. One is a Zillow listing for a house you can't stop looking at. One is a mortgage calculator you've run 6 different ways. And the third is a Reddit thread where someone exactly like you is asking exactly your question. Is now a terrible time to buy? You close the laptop. You tell yourself you'll figure it out next month. Then you open it again. Nothing went wrong. You're just doing the thing that millions of people are doing right now, trying to make the most consequential financial decision of your life, while the rules of that decision are changing faster than anyone can track. Here's what I need you to understand before this video ends. What's coming for real estate over the next 36 months is not what you think, not the crash that people keep predicting, not the recovery that the headlines keep promising, something stranger. Something most people are completely unprepared for, and the gap between those who understand it and those who don't is going to be measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you've ever sat at that kitchen table running the same numbers for the 3rd time and still not knowing what to do, subscribe and hit that like button, because that confusion is exactly what this video is built to dissolve. My name is Elena, and I spend way too much time thinking about why intelligent people make irrational decisions about real estate. This channel exists because I believe the difference between a good decision and a catastrophic one is usually not intelligence. It's information architecture, knowing which numbers matter, which traps are invisible, and which moves everyone around you is making that you should absolutely not copy. Before we go further, not a financial advisor, not a real estate agent. This is not financial advice. This is the analysis I wish someone had handed me before I made my first real estate decision. Let me tell you what's actually happening right now. The median home price in the United States crossed $420,000. The average 30-year mortgage rate spent most of 2024 above 7%. The average monthly mortgage payment on a median-priced home is now roughly $2,800 before property tax, insurance, or the HOA fees your builder buried in the fine print. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. A study from the National Association of Realtors found that the monthly cost to own a median-priced home is now more than 50% higher than the cost to rent the equivalent property in most major metros. Let me say that again. Owning is more than 50% more expensive than renting right now in most cities. That is not a normal relationship. That is a historical anomaly. And almost nobody is talking about what it means. The trap is not that you might buy at the wrong time. The trap is that the entire framework you were given to make this decision was built for a market that no longer exists. Meet Jordan. Jordan is 34, works in tech, earns $105,000 a year, has $60,000 saved, took 5 years to get there. The bank pre-approved Jordan for $520,000. And Jordan is about to make a decision that will quietly cost him more than $200,000 over the next decade. The trap here is not overspending. The trap is the approval letter itself. Banks calculate how much you can borrow based on a formula called the debt-to-income ratio. They will lend you money up to the point where your total monthly debt payments hit 43% to 45% of your gross income. That is their limit. It is not your limit. It is not a recommendation. It is the maximum threshold before the regulatory risk model flags the loan. At $105,000 a year, Jordan's gross monthly income is $8,750. 43% of that is $3,762. The bank sees a green light. Jordan sees a green light. The problem is that nobody at the bank is running Jordan's actual monthly cash flow. The $1,100 in student loans, the $680 car payment, the $420 in health insurance that comes out of his paycheck before taxes. Jordan's real take-home after taxes and fixed commitments is $3,900. A mortgage at the pre-approved limit would consume 72% of actual spendable income. That's not a house. That's a trap with a beautiful kitchen. The exit at level 1 is not to ignore the pre-approval. It's to run a completely different number, your personal DTI against your actual take-home, not gross income. The number that actually matters is never the one on the approval letter. Here's the test. Take your monthly take-home, the actual number that hits your checking account after every deduction. Multiply it by 0.32. That is the ceiling for your total housing cost. Every dollar above that ceiling is a dollar borrowed from your retirement account, your emergency fund, and your ability to survive the next unexpected thing life will throw at you. And life will throw something. Now meet Priya. Priya is 31, earns $88,000. Watching rates, waiting for them to drop below 6% before she buys. She's been waiting since early 2023. She will keep waiting. Here is what nobody tells you about the wait for rates to drop strategy. You're not making a financial decision. You're making a timing bet. And the data on timing bets in real estate is devastating. A Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta analysis found that in most markets, for every 1% drop in mortgage rates, home prices increase by 3% to 5% within 12 months as suppressed demand floods back in. Priya is waiting for the discount. The discount has a 36-month delay timer on it, and when it expires, it costs more than the discount was worth. The trap at level 2 is waiting for perfect conditions that have historically never existed simultaneously. Low rates plus low prices plus low competition is a combination that has appeared in the U.S. housing market for approximately 18 months in the past 4 decades. Here's what that means practically. If Priya buys at 7% today on a $380,000 home, her principal and interest payment is $2,529. If rates drop to 5.5% in 18 months and she refinances, her payment drops to $2,158. The refinance costs approximately $8,000. She breaks even in 21 months. But the same house in 18 months, at 5.5% rates, now costs $412,000 because demand brought prices up. Her payment? $2,341. The wait cost her $100 a month more, forever. The exit at level 2 is to stop making a rate decision and start making a life decision. If the house works at the current rate, it works. You marry the house, you date the rate. Here's where I need you to stay with me, because the second half of this video is where the math starts doing something genuinely strange. The first 2 levels were about the mistakes people make when they're trying to buy. What comes next is about the traps waiting on the other side, the ones that hit after you close. The Garcias. Combined household income of $155,000. They just bought a $475,000 home with 10% down. Their mortgage, property taxes, and insurance come to $3,400 a month. They budgeted for it, they ran the numbers. They are about to discover that the house has its own budget that nobody showed them. The average annual maintenance cost on a home is 1% to 2% of its value per year. On a $475,000 home, that's $4,750 to $9,500 annually, roughly $400 to $790 a month. The Garcias didn't put that in the spreadsheet because it feels hypothetical. It isn't. A 2023 Thumbtack report found that homeowners spent an average of $6,400 on home maintenance in a single year. That's $533 a month they forgot to budget. Add the HOA at $285, the additional umbrella insurance they need now that they own property, the furniture and window treatments for 2,200 square feet they didn't need in the apartment, the lawn care, the annual HVAC service, the water heater that will fail in year 3 with a $1,400 repair bill attached. The Garcias' $155,000 household income takes home approximately $9,700 per month after taxes. Their real housing cost, when you run all the actual numbers, is $5,200. That's 53% of take-home. The conventional wisdom says housing shouldn't exceed 28% to 30%. These are not irresponsible people. They did everything they were supposed to do. The trap disguises itself as a responsible purchase. The problem is, the spreadsheet was incomplete, and the missing rows are the ones that will quietly drain every dollar of financial flexibility they had. The exit at level 3 is to run a 5-year budget simulation before closing, not a monthly payment check. Monthly payments are what the bank needs from you. A 5-year simulation is what you need from yourself. Pull up a spreadsheet. In column 1, list your mortgage PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. In column 2, add 1.5% of the purchase price divided by 12 for maintenance. In column 3, add HOA if applicable. In column 4, add an honest estimate of what you'll spend on furniture, landscaping, and the small repairs that pile up in year 1. Add all 4. That is your actual monthly housing cost. If it exceeds 35% of your real take-home, the math is telling you something. Listen to it. Here is a stat that stopped me cold. According to a Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies analysis, more than 40% of first-time homebuyers who sell within 5 years of purchasing either break even or take a loss when all transaction costs are factored in. 40%. Sit with that. The trap at level 4 is treating home equity as a savings account you can access on demand. The math of homeownership only works when you hold long enough for appreciation to outrun the transaction cost stack. The 5 to 6% realtor commission on the sale, the closing costs you paid to buy, the maintenance you put in, and the opportunity cost of your down payment sitting in an illiquid asset instead of a diversified index fund. Consider what $60,000, the average first-time buyer down payment, does in the market instead. At a 7% historical average return, $60,000 becomes approximately $83,000 in 5 years and $118,000 in 10. The house needs to appreciate by more than that delta, plus cover all your transaction costs for the equity argument to win on pure math. In many markets, it does win. Over 10 to 15 years. In some markets, over 5 years, it does not. The trap here is confusing the idea of building equity with the reality of building wealth. They are related. They are not the same thing. The equity in your home is illiquid, leveraged, concentration risk, and the financial industry has spent 70 years telling you it's the safest investment you'll ever make. Charlie Munger said it plainly, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." The financial death at level 4 is treating your home as your entire retirement plan. Here's what's actually coming, and this is where I need you to think carefully, because the narrative you're hearing everywhere else is about to diverge from the structural reality. Between 2025 and 2028, 3 simultaneous forces are going to collide in the U.S. housing market in a way that has no modern precedent. First, the demographic unlock. Baby boomers hold approximately 38% of all owner-occupied housing in the United States. According to a 22,400 Zillow research report, the peak transfer of boomer-owned homes to the market through downsizing, estate sales, and assisted living transitions begins in 2026 and accelerates through 2030. That's an estimated 9 million additional homes coming to market over 5 years in a supply-constrained environment. Second, the insurance crisis. In coastal and wildfire-prone markets, California, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, private insurance is quietly disappearing. State Farm stopped writing new homeowner policies in California. Farmers pulled out of Florida. A 2024 First Street Foundation analysis found that 39 million U.S. homes face material climate risk that is already reprising insurance and will eventually reprice the homes themselves. Third, the lock-in effect unwinding. Roughly 60% of current U.S. mortgage holders have rates below 4%. They are not selling. They cannot afford to trade a 3.5% mortgage for a 7% one. This has artificially suppressed supply since 2022. But people's lives don't wait for mortgage rates. Divorces happen, relocations happen, job losses happen. The lock-in unwinding will not be gradual. It will be episodic, market by market, triggered by local economic shifts. The insurance crisis deserves an extra moment because it is the piece of this puzzle that most buyers, even sophisticated ones, are completely overlooking. When an insurer exits a market, they don't announce it in the listing. You find out during the closing process, or worse, after closing when your renewal comes back at $9,000 instead of $3,200. In some Florida counties, the only remaining option is the state-backed insurer of last resort, which has its own solvency questions and premium increases that have outpaced inflation by 400% in the last 3 years. A home that was affordable at $3,100 a month total housing cost in 2022 can be unaffordable at $4,400 in 2026, with no change in the mortgage rate, no change in the property tax, just the insurance line. That is happening right now in real zip codes to real homeowners, and it is not priced into the asking price of the house. When these three forces collide, supply shock from boomer homes, insurance-driven demand flight from risk-exposed markets, and lock-in unwinding, the national housing market will fracture. Some markets will see genuine price corrections. Some will see continued appreciation. The national average will be meaningless. And everyone watching the national headline will be making decisions with the wrong data. Back to Jordan and Priya. Let's run them out to age 55. Jordan bought the $520,000 house at the limit of the pre-approval. His cash flow was squeezed by year 2. He couldn't contribute to his $401k at the employer match rate. He missed $8,400 in matched contributions over 5 years, money that would have compounded to roughly $19,000 by 55. He sold at year 7 due to a job relocation and netted $44,000 after transaction costs. He felt like he'd won. He hadn't done the math on what the $401k shortfall would cost him at retirement. Priya stopped waiting for rates in 2024. She bought in a secondary market, a mid-sized city with strong employment fundamentals but lower price volatility. She bought at 6.8%, refinanced at 5.9% 18 months later. Her total housing cost stayed at 29% of take-home. She maxed her retirement contributions every year. At 55, the difference between Priya's trajectory and Jordan's, controlling for identical starting income, is approximately $340,000 in net investable wealth. The gap didn't open at the closing table. It opened in the pre-approval meeting, in the rate weighting game, in the budget spreadsheet that was missing 4 rows. Here is the specific framework I'd give anyone navigating this market. 1. Rebuild the math from actual take-home, not gross income, not the pre-approval number. Your real take-home, after taxes and every current fixed obligation. Your total housing cost, mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA, maintenance reserve, should not exceed 32% to 35% of that number. Not the bank's 43%. Yours. 2. Run the market-specific research, not the national narrative. Is your target market supply constrained or supply expanding? What is the 5-year trend on insurance premiums in that zip code? Is that market in a boomer-heavy demographic that's about to release housing supply? These questions have specific, researched answers. They are not hard to find. They are just not in the Zillow listing. 3. Price the real total cost of ownership before you price the mortgage. Include a maintenance reserve of 1.5% of home value per year. Include insurance escalation. Include your actual transaction cost if you sold in 5 years. If the home still makes sense after all of that, then it makes sense. If it only makes sense when you're looking at the payment in isolation, it doesn't. 4. Stop optimizing for the house you want and start optimizing for the financial position you need. There is no trophy for buying the most house your income can technically support. There is a very real penalty, measured in flexibility, in retirement contributions, in the inability to weather a job loss without a crisis. The boring choice isn't the consolation prize. It is the strategy. You can choose not to play this game at the speed and scale the market wants you to. The only scoreboard that actually matters is the one nobody can see. If this video gave you a number or a framework you hadn't run before, share it with someone sitting at that same kitchen table with 3 tabs open. They need this more than the Zillow algorithm does. I'll see you in the next one.